So how did you convert? Because I think first 90 days, you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know.
And it's also a good thing, right? Because you'll call anybody. I would call anybody. I was never afraid to walk in or anything.
You walked in every space.
Every space. Like, and when you know a lot, you'll be like, oh, well, that broker or this company works with that broker, right? Well, you're too dumb to know that when you start out. You just start calling on everybody.
Exactly.
Which is, I think, a good thing, right?
I agree.
Because oftentimes brokers can talk themselves out of things. Welcome to our Industrial Advisors podcast with Bill Condon and Matt McGregor. We have a 5-minute Friday today on the first 90 days in industrial real estate as a broker. Walk us through what you did for your first 90. Now, I know it was a long time ago, but it's a long time ago for both of us.
Well, first, whether you're a new broker or you're a senior broker training, I think the first 90 days is so critical to set the pace.
Yeah.
I was kind of kicked out the door, which I think benefited me. I was with Trammell Crow, and the guy showed me to print 11 by 17s of the market. And back then, it was a little lower tech, 150 years ago. I would write down on the top of every single building who the tenant is and who the owner was. So my first 90 days were literally, I'd get there in the morning, we would have a plan, we'd mark out where I was going, and I would go knock doors. And it started in November of 2005. And so it was raining, right?
Yeah.
Just getting soaked.
Yeah.
But I went out and knocked doors for the first 90 days and found a lot of deals, right? And understood the difference between who owned the building, who the tenants were. And that 90 days was just critical, right? Because it really just set the stage for the rest of my career.
Yeah. Same approach that I took. The first 6 months, I remember I went down every single day and knocked on doors. Spent the majority of the day down there. 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Get down there, collect all the business cards.
Yep.
Talk to as many people as you could. Put all that stuff back in the database, and then do it all over again. The next day. And you run into deals. It was a great way for me to learn the market. I didn't know anything really about the Kent Valley when I was fresh out of college. I mean, I was green as green could be, but took the approach of I'm going to control what I can control. Work as hard as I can and get down there every single day. And you come up with some funny stories, but what a great way to learn the market, right? So I was down there for 6 months, every day, grinding away, and it was really, really impactful and helpful to learn the market. So how did you convert? Because I think first 90 days, you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know.
And it's also a good thing, right? Because you'll call anybody. I would call anybody. I was never afraid to walk in or anything.
You walked in every space.
Every space. Like, and when you know a lot, you'll be like, oh, well, that broker or this company works with that broker, right? Well, you're too dumb to know that when you start out. You just start calling on everybody.
Exactly.
Which is, I think, a good thing, right?
I agree.
Because oftentimes brokers can talk themselves out of things. So how would you take those leads and then convert it into transactions?
Well, I think I benefited hugely by not having a database because the team that I started with was not a tenant team. They were a landlord team.
Yeah.
So they didn't really have a database of tenants. I think people are at a disadvantage now. Sometimes our young guys, when they have full access to the database, because they'll come back from marching the market and then they'll see our notes, right? And that will influence them of, so-and-so's with them. This is a really difficult client or whatever the reason is, or maybe they just did a deal a year ago. And they're not going to call on them because they saw the date. Right. I had the advantage of no knowledge.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to talk to everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything. So I'm creating all new. And sometimes, somebody signed, but their company's exploding.
Correct.
And they need another 50,000 feet.
Yes.
And if you look in the database and you saw the note that they just did it, or the guy's a jerk, or the guy's working with so-and-so, it will influence you to take a step back.
Yeah.
Where the way I think both of us did it was just raw go.
Yeah, and the other thing too is you get better at it every day. So your first 90 days, stuff happens and people tell you to get out of it, all this kind of stuff, but it makes you better, right? And so you learn stuff those first 90 days, even though you may not be as polished, you grow every day during those 90 days.
That's right.
And then it really helps you set up yourself for the next second half of that year.
That's right.
Because when I look at
where you got more desk time.
Oh yeah, where you're making calls, you get better on the phone.
That's right.
And so for me, I look at that like first 90 to 180 days, it was so impactful, and then it really set me up to just launched that second
Yes.
half of that first year. And then you look at your first year, we both, because we called so much, are still doing deals with a lot of those companies that we really established relationships
Early
our
on.
first year,
Yeah.
2 years in the business. And, those clients have developed into friends. So,
And the guys that did that today are still the most active brokers.
yeah, I think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
When we entered the business, we entered with really
A
good
tough
brokers.
class.
Yeah, it was like
Yes.
really
Me,
guys
you,
that were
Stark, Thad. I mean, there was a lot of really good
O'Brien,
guys.
yeah, all those guys, and like guys that worked really hard and that were not only hard workers but like good at what they do. So you'd run into each other and compete, and it's cool to see a lot of those guys still just crushing it because we had a good class. In fact, I would say our 2-3 window of like our era was as good as it gets from a people entering the business and then longevity standpoint of still really hitting it hard.
That's right. And I will say that the guys and girls that do that door knocking, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do.
Yeah,
right?
and it's
like,
a lost art, man.
It's like I jump in the cold plunge every morning, as you know, and I go, if I do this at 47 degrees, nothing I do the rest of the day is going to be harder than this, right? Sitting in that for 5 minutes, right? It's the same thing. If you do that for your first 90 days, nothing else in brokerage is going to be harder than that.
Correct.
That door knock can be intimidating until you get used to it.
Yeah, and then you do it, and there's just so many benefits from it.
Yes.
And again, I don't think people do it as much as they did when we were starting
It's
out.
a lost art.
So anyway, we encourage it. Fun to look back on different ways to have success, but door knocking, I think, still works.
That's right.
Thank you for listening.
Happy Friday.